Hello and welcome to PRSay. This is the podcast for the Houston chapter of the Public Relations Society of America. I'm your host, Veronica Sopher. I'm thrilled to be here because at PRSay, we have an opportunity to meet some of our phenomenal members in our Houston chapter. And this podcast is all about getting to know each other so that we can connect when we're at in-person events or so we just have a stronger network here in the Houston area so PRSay members can support each other. So I'm just thrilled to be your host. And I'm going to take care of some housekeeping. So if you are listening on our podcast, make sure you hit subscribe. We don't even want you to miss any episodes of PRSay. And if you are watching on Facebook or on YouTube, make sure you drop some comments so my guests and I can circle back with you and connect and say hello. So we're going to go ahead and get this episode started. I'm so excited to bring on my guest today. Here she's going to be joining us. We have Susan Ann Schmaeling joining us, and I practice it. Schmaeling, and I practice it. Susan Ann, thank you so much for joining us.
It is my pleasure, Veronica. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're an APR. I see that.
Yes.
And tell us about your PR journey and where it is we can find you.
Well, I would say my journey started when I was a child because I love to read, I love to write, I love to draw Snoopy cartoons. And everybody in my family is in the finance accounting field, and I find that not very interesting. So by the time I went off to undergraduate school, I had this concept that, I should do so. I don't, you think you want to be a novelist or something else. And then I sort of found myself in communication classes and thought, wow, this is a whole lot of fun. So I started my career in advertising in New York City as a lowly junior copywriter, and didn't find that really all that interesting. And I was able from a colleague to segue into a public relations agency.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out I loved it. We had a variety of clients from low-fat cheese to Cointreau liqueur to the International Center for Photography. And, I was an assistant account executive, and every day was a different day. And I did a lot of writing because I was the lowly person on the account.
Right.
And I would, go with my, account supervisor to meet clients and just, really take notes on paper with a pen. And, through the years, I just journeyed along. I ended up in Austin, and I love Austin. I worked at the Frank Irwin Center for a year or two.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was so much fun, like concerts galore. And from there, I moved to Houston, and I've been here since 1989. And I started working at the Contemporary Arts Museum Houston down in the Houston Museum District, and found that was the most ideal position. I probably think I have had it in my career because I could tell the stories of these working artists. We showed the work of mostly living artists. So I had an artist to come in, and would be there for the installation and could share their story, their passion, how they got started with the general public. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Oh.
Somewhere along the line, I think I did my APR in like 1992 or 93.
Oh, that's impressive.
And I've done a lot of things for PRSay, but I haven't really, I'm naughty. I haven't been very active, but I actually was the president of the scholarship, foundation when it was a foundation, and it hadn't been folded into, the umbrella of the society, which I think is a very good idea. But I think the thing that draws me to PR the most is telling someone's story, learning about something I haven't learned about before. I tend to specialize in the cultural and nonprofit organizations, a lot of clients in the cultural arts, in dance, visual arts, performing arts, singers, chamber choirs, that sort of has been my niche. But small business owners as well, because they are the people who are wearing multiple hats and are pressed. And the last thing they really know how to do is, particularly media relations or how to tell their story to the media. So that's been my niche. And here I am.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And good for you for getting your APR so early in your career, really.
Yeah,
Because
I guess so. I mean, I
yeah,
guess at that time, yeah, I was 10 years into my career.
yeah, yeah. No, that's great because
And
some
it
of
was
us really
fun
don't.
because there was super fun, that was back in the day when people taught classes. So Chris Bosman, who is now a happy retirement person, kind of coordinated it. And I mean, there were just great people who came in to teach us and
Mhm,
prep us. And
mhm.
it was that we actually took it on like early Macs or whatever computers at U of H. And I remember in the class, one of the computers failed, and this
Oh,
poor woman, exactly, you're trying to get down every like nugget out of your brain that you can, and they were rebooting her computer, and I was like, that's not right.
that's not fair.
That's not fair to her at all.
Well, that's awesome. And so tell me about some of the committees that you've served on and some of the
Oh
different
my
ways. I know you
gosh.
said there are different seasons in our lives when we can be more
Yeah.
active in the
Yeah.
organization. So it's okay to not be all the time, but tell us about some of the things that have brought you
So
good value.
back when, okay, this is in the 90s because I was actually pregnant with my son who was born in 1993. But I did a whole program, a half an hour, a half day, maybe a full day program at the Junior League of Houston on nonprofit organizations and nonprofit communications. And, I was so surprised when I asked the, at the time, head of the Children's Museum of Houston to come. And I can't even remember who else I had on the panels, but it was amazing that I like asked these power people in Houston and they came.
That's
So
awesome.
it was also a big education to me is like ask. All
Hmm.
people can say is no. And they
Yeah.
were happy to come and share their expertise. So I did a few of those. I did serve as treasurer. I did serve as secretary. And that was that. And then somehow Sabra Gill and Ben Wheatley, they were on the foundation scholarship.
Hmm.
It was a little separate thing. And they asked me to come aboard, and I did. And at some point, I was the president for 2 years. And then Edie
Yeah.
Pingelli took over after me. And it was a lot of fun. It's so fun to give money to people, isn't it?
Oh, it
And I just
is.
think it's a really helpful thing that we do for students because gosh, school is freaking expensive. We don't even want to talk about that. And
Yeah.
every $1,000 helps.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And we've got such a strong affiliate group with our PRSay chapter that it's really exciting because it's not just scholarships, but it's also mentors and mentee
Mentoring
relationships.
and having them come be part of our community if they stay in
Hmm.
Houston, which is
Hmm.
wonderful. And even if they do flow away, sometimes they come back,
Yeah. Yeah.
just
No, we've
starting those
definitely seen that.
relationships in the profession that are always valuable.
Hmm. Yeah. So tell me, what's a piece of advice you'd give a young mentee that's coming up through the ranks right now? What would you tell them about, the state of public relations? Maybe how important PRSay can be for their career. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would absolutely say stay curious. I mean,
Hmm.
I think that is the strength that most of us have. We're curious people. We want to know more about you, what you do, your technology, what makes you different than everybody else. And even though the technology keeps changing in the way we present, an idea, a story idea to someone, the essence of telling a good story has never changed.
That's right.
So having that foundation and having your objectives laid out, you can it becomes a little bit easy to sell your story. And
Yeah.
PRSA, as I was saying, I've been naughty. I haven't been around much. It was so valuable to me in the 90s when I was, in the profession, actively working at the museum. I hadn't started my own consultancy. I started it in 1997. And there were just people I could call upon and ask questions. And they were so generous and willing to give advice and guidance and say, check this resource.
Hmm.
Have you thought about this?
Hmm.
And there's always been some, really great speakers to learn and grow from because certainly none of us know everything,
Oh, yeah.
and there's always something new to learn. And that's what I love
Oh,
about
that's
our
so true.
profession. There's
Yeah.
always something new.
Agreed. That's some really great advice. I love it. So tell us, as we're wrapping up, how can people connect with you now? Now you've got your own thing going. Tell us a little bit about that and where people can connect with you.
I am so easy to find. I am Susan Schmaeling PR on the web, and Instagram, I'm Susan Schmaeling. You just have to figure out how to spell that last
Spell
name.
it.
Facebook, Twitter, I am around and you can find me. And I don't mind when people reach out and touch. I actually do contact back.
There you go. That's great. Well, we need to make sure that all of our members reach out to you so that when you do have a chance to come and visit in person, people already have a connection and you can,
Right. And they're not
um,
saying, who's she?
yeah, who's that lady? Yeah, no. Well, Susan Ann, this has been fantastic. I've so enjoyed chatting with you.
I as well, Veronica. It's been fun. It's been
Good,
fun.
good. Well, I hope to see you in person soon.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, guys, make sure you connect. You can find her on LinkedIn. We will have some links in the show notes because our objective is to have our members get together, get to know each other, and provide each other resources and connections. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this episode of PRSay, the podcast for the Houston chapter of the Public Relations Society of America, and we will check in with you next time.